Hey guys, are you guys ready? Because it's time! Zombies Part 2. We're gonna unlock new areas, buying weapons, setting up waves, zombie settings, and everything else the undead heart desires. First of all, I'm so sorry this video has taken so long, but it's just been so crazy. So anyway, I'm not gonna take up more time than needed, and let's just jump straight into it as soon as you guys press that like button. Did you? Good. Okay, let's start with a very short recap of what we've done so far. So if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, then do that first, or you'll be pretty lost. And if someone would be so nice to put timestamps in the description below for each part, that'd make me very happy, and I'll pin the first comment so that everybody can jump to the part that they need. Okay, so I just set it up for 2 players here, but you might have expanded this to 4 or more already. But we've got our spawn pads right here with a mutator zone over it. Then this mutator zone will start a cycle of triggers, triggering each other, kind of like in Minecraft 2 hoppers would do. So this trigger triggers the other one, and then that one back to the first one, and so on. Then here we have 2 attribute triggers that check if you have at least 1 score, meaning you killed at least 1 zombie. If you do, then we'll call both the item granter, which will give you 1 gold, and the score manager that removes your score so that the next second when this cycle happens again, you don't get the gold again. And it's that easy. And then here we have our zombie spawners that only have fiends. Now, in between episodes, I did put down a little factory here that is blocked off and has 2 doors. And I put up a wooden blockage here so that, you know, it's perfect way to start implementing new mechanics. And I can show you guys both how to use a door as an access point to a next area, or something that is blocking the way, like this wooden blockage kind of thing. So, let's start off with that. Let's check what our next free channel is. So open up your island settings and open the channel browser. Now, as you can see, we have 5 channels in use. 1 and 2 are for player 1 triggers. 3 and 4 are for player 2 triggers. And then finally, we have channel 100, which is the channel that grants the gold and removes the score. So our next free one in line for me, that would be channel 5. Okay, very easy. We'll start with this door right here. All we have to do is first set up our price to open up this new area. So grab a conditional button and place it right next to the door and configure it. First, we'll set the interaction text to unlock door or unlock area or whatever you want. And then, if you want, you can change the color and icons, but here are the 3 options that really matter. The first one is disable after use to yes. Why? Because, well, after we use this button, meaning we unlock this door, this area, we don't want the player to be able to repurchase this and lose gold on something that is already unlocked. The next one is key items required. This will be the price or gold required to be able to unlock this door. So as an example, I'll just set this to 10, which is pretty low, but you know, for demo to be able to easily just show you guys how it works, 10 is perfect. And then 3, put the when activated transmit on to channel 5, which is the first free one we just saw in our list of channel browsers. And now, before we move on, grab some gold from the creative inventory and just drop it on the floor right next to this button. And you'll see the conditional button will just absorb it. It doesn't matter how much gold you drop, as it's just, you know, what it will use to configure the key items required option. Okay, so this button is a one-time use button that will take away 10 gold and then transmit on channel 5. Perfect. Now the next thing we do is grab a lock device, which allows us to unlock or lock doors. Now as soon as you grab this, you will see that the hologram is red, but if you place it close enough to a wall with a door in it, it will turn blue. And what does that mean? Well, it means that it's going to attach to that wall, meaning that that's the door it's going to be controlling. So place it next to the door, and let's go over the options really fast. Initial door position closed. Perfect. Okay, we need it closed and locked at the start. The visible in game, let's turn that to off, because, well, there's no real use for us here to be able to see this extra device. Because we have the conditional button on the other side, it will just get confusing. And now the only thing we need to change is the unlock when receiving from and the open when receiving from. And set this to the channel 5 we just set up in our conditional button. So 5-second recap while I'm starting the game to test. Conditional button requires 10 gold to be able to activate. It takes away the 10 gold and then it sends a signal on channel 5 which unlocks the door and done. Good. Okay. Now, let's do the same with the blockage. So, we can just copy over a conditional button, but the only thing we need to change is change the channel to another free one. So for me, the next one in line is channel 6. Grab the conditional button and just paste it right here next to our blockage. Somewhere that makes sense, you know, if you put it far away, then it's not gonna seem logical that it opens that barrier. Then change the key items required if you want to up or lower the price for this. And change the when activated transmit on to channel 6 or whatever you have free. So, in short, we'll need a new channel for every single new area that we're trying to unlock. And now, instead of using a lock device to open this door, we're going to just blow up this barrier. So grab an explosive device and place it as close as possible to the wood without touching or being close to other props. And a little bit up from the floor as well, so that it doesn't destroy our floor in the process. Now configure it as followed. Set the health to indestructible, the blast radius to 0.25, which is the smallest we can go, player damage to 0, because, well, we don't want to kill the player when opening this area, we want to remove the blockage and unlock the area. Now up the structure damage a bit, just to make sure we're getting rid of the wood. The damage indestructible objects to yes, very important, because else it's not going to blow up and open. And then turn off the audio and VFX, because we don't really want it to be an actual explosion, we just want to get rid of the wood. And then visible in-game to no. And then finally, on the bottom, set the explode when receiving from to channel 6, which is the one that this new conditional button will transmit on. So let's quickly see. First we shoot some zombies in the face, always a lot of fun. And then press this button next to the blockage. And boom! Area's open. GG, well played. Okay, let's move on to the next part now that we've got areas and all that covered. Buying weapons. Now I know that a lot of you guys will already have this set up, but I did get a lot of questions about this as well, so let's just quickly cover it. Item spawners don't have the gold option yet to purchase, so we need to use vending machines. So throw down one of those and configure it as follows. Set the first item resource to gold, well, obviously because that's our currency. And then set the cost of the first item to whatever you want the weapon to cost. For example, I'll just use 5 to quickly demo. But again, change this how you want and make sure that weapons that are more rare should cost more and be further away from the initial area, because it wouldn't make sense that you can just buy a rocket launcher in the starting area and then just, win the game. And just leave all the other options as is. Then grab whatever you want this vending machine to contain. I'm gonna say this first one will contain a infantry rifle. And all I need to do is grab it, go to my inventory, and just drop it in front of the vending machine, and it'll absorb it. And that's literally it for the vending machine and buying weapons. Now don't forget to also set up different vending machines with ammo with a lower cost as well. So let me just start the game. And you'll see that as soon as I have 5 gold and interact with the vending machine, it takes away my 5 gold and throws the rifle on the floor. Great, that easy. Okay, good. Now we're going to go to the advanced stuff. So get ready, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that yet, and let's get our big brain out and set up how to do waves with cooldown periods in between. And let's take it one part at a time. So let me grab a timed device, and this first one will be our cooldown timer, which will also be activating in the beginning of the game, just so that we can give the player a chance to position himself before starting the fight. Let's configure it and explain and talk about it meanwhile. Okay, so let's start this timer when the round starts. We'll leave it on 10 seconds because we're lazy to change it, but you could also probably give them a little bit more time than just 10 seconds of cooldown. And then set the timer label text to something like zombies are coming soon, prepare, or grab your weapons, or position yourself, or whatever you want. Just something that we clearly know that we're on cooldown. Good. Now, the next couple of stuff doesn't really matter as much as this device will be outside of our map. So it doesn't matter the visibility and all of that. What does matter is we need to change the completion behavior to reset. Because if we don't, then we won't be able to reuse it again in between waves. So reset just means put the timer back to the initial time, but don't actually start it yet. And now, you scroll all the way to the channels and set the when completed transmit on to channel 7, which is again our next free one in line because we used 5 for the door and 6 for the blockage. Now, what I'm going to do now is probably going to confuse you a little bit, at this point of the video at least, and it might seem pointless, but just stick around and you'll understand what and why we're doing this. So, we know that when the cooldown period ends, we're going to trigger on channel 7. But instead of just activating a second timed device for the fighting zombie phase directly, we're going to put a trigger in between it. Again, just stick around and I'll explain it in a little bit why. For now, just trust me, I know what I'm doing. Kind of, not really. Anyway, so grab a trigger and set the trigger when receiving from to channel 7. And when the trigger transmits, on channel 8. So what does that mean? When this first cooldown device ends, it will transmit on 7, this trigger will pick it up and send on 8. Now grab a new time device, which will be the one for our fighting zombie phase, part 1. This one we're not going to start on round start, because we have the cooldown period first. And for demo, I'm going to set it up to 30 seconds. But you should probably up this a little bit more to maybe like 2 minutes or so, depending on your map. As a timer label text, we'll just say Fighting Zombies Phase 1, just like before. Set the completion behavior to reset, and then scroll all the way to the bottom till you reach the channels part, and set the start when receiving from to channel 8, which is the one that gets called through this trigger, remember, that we set up right here to just pick up the signal and send it on. Again, explaining very soon. And then, when the completed, transmit on to channel 9, our next free one. Now finally, go back to your first timer and set the start when receiving from to channel 9. Channel 9? Well, the one that gets called when our fighting timer ends, meaning the cooldown should start. Now before we can test this, all we need to do is go to your creature spawner and change the enabled at game start option to disabled, because we don't want zombies in the beginning. We're going to enable it on channel 8, which is the same channel that starts our fighting timer. And we're going to disable it again on channel 9, which is when our timer ends. And let's also bind the eliminate creature when receiving from to the same channel 9, just to be sure. So, cooldown timer starts. When it ends after 10 seconds, we'll see that the zombies spawn. But when the timer of the fighting phase hits 0, it will disable the zombie spawners and start the cooldown period. Then, when that one is done again, 10 seconds later, the zombies will start coming again. Okay, great. Now let's improve this mechanic a little bit more and make it so that every wave becomes more and more difficult. So whoever is writing the comments with the timestamps, this is where you would put another timestamp. Thank you. And let's split this up in 2 more parts. One will be to increase the difficulty every time for 5 waves. And then once we have that, the final thing we'll do is just repeat the most difficult wave over and over and over again. So that players can just have endless amount of zombie killing fun. So we have our cooldown timer right here. We have our phase 1 fighting timer right next to it. And then we have the trigger right here that up until this point for unknown reason just connected them. Now here's why. Configure this trigger and set the times can trigger to 1. Why exactly? Very easy. Because we're going to be reusing our cooldown timer every time to save as many channels as we can to leave those for unlocking areas in the actual map. Now copy this trigger right next to it again. But here's what we're going to change. We're going to set the times can trigger to 2 and the transmit every X triggers to 2 as well. And then in the channels, leave the trigger when receiving from to channel 7 as is, which is our end of our cooldown timer, remember? But up the when triggered transmit on to channel 10 instead of the original channel 8. And now copy over the timed device from fighting phase 1 as well, but the only thing we'll have to change is the start when receiving from to channel 10. And let's update the text as well to saying fighting zombies phase 2. Okay, let me just step back a little bit and recap. When the game will start, this most left timer right here activates and starts counting down. This is our cooldown timer, remember? When it ends, it will send a signal on both of these triggers. But only the first one will actually activate, because the second one is set to only transmit every second time it's triggered. So both of these get activated, but only the first one will actually trigger and send a signal on 8, which activates our first timer. This one counts down and our zombies activate. When it's done counting down, it will activate the cooldown timer again and disable the zombie spawners again. Cooldown timer starts counting down again. and once done, it will activate both of these triggers. But the first one will no longer send the signal, because we said it can only be triggered once, meaning it receives the signal from the cooldown timer that just ended, but it doesn't do anything with it. The second trigger, however, is now called for the second time, because we also called it the first time, remember? And hey, it's the second time it's called. And what did we set in the options? Transmit every second time it's triggered. So what does it do? It activates our fighting phase 2 timer. It's a little bit complicated, but I hope you guys understand what exactly we're doing. And that one will start, and when it's done, what is it gonna call? Ghostbusters! Oh no, wait, sorry. It's going to call our cooldown timer. And that's a system that we're going to repeat for every difficulty, or better said, round we want. So what do we need before testing this? A new zombie spawner that activates on channel 10. So just copy and paste our first spawner right here next to the other one. Leave the disabled channel as is, those are the same, but the enabled channel, set it to channel 10, or fighting phase 2 timer channel. Finally, to actually make it more difficult, we're going to either change the creature type to a different one that either has more health or does more damage or is faster, or we can, for example, shorten the wave timer or the number of creatures it will spawn, so more zombies spawn, making it more difficult. Okay, so let me just super speed around of how exactly that will look at the moment, and I'll see you guys when we get back. Good, now let me quickly do one more round of difficulty increasing to show you guys and just to recap what we're doing. And then you guys should be able to do the rest on your own if you want more waves that become more and more difficult. So, copy the trigger, up the time scan trigger and the transmit every X triggers from 2 to 3, and the when triggered to channel 11. Now copy the timed device, change the text to well, this will now be phase 3, and start when receiving from to channel 11, the next one we just set. Now just copy the creature spawner, change the type, and enable on 11. Done. Okay, you guys are following up until this point? Great, and now just repeat this for however many waves you want. Now for the final piece of mechanics, the repeating the most difficult wave. Go back to your timed devices and place a new trigger right next to the last one. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to disable this trigger at the game starts, and we're going to enable it on 11. Why 11? Well, 11 is the channel that gets called when our most difficult wave starts. So when that wave starts, we're going to enable this final trigger. And now all that we need to do is the same as the previous ones. So trigger when receiving from channel 7, and when triggered, transmit on to channel 11. So all these other triggers can only activate X amount of times, and transmit every X amount of times as well. But this last one we enable when the final wave starts, meaning that after the cooldown timer will start again after the most difficult wave has been reached. When that one reaches 0, it will trigger all of these triggers here in a row, but none of them is actually going to do something with it, because the signal just gets stopped because they've all reached their maximum times it can trigger at this point. Except this last one right here that we just set up. Because this one doesn't have a timescan trigger limit, but instead it has only just been enabled and activates our most difficult wave timed device, putting it in a loop with the cooldown timer, and then back to this one, and then back to the cooldown, and back to this one. And that's it, guys. Now go out there and build your own map. Make sure to add creature managers for the different types and rounds of zombies, and follow the instructions from the first video to set up the score and all of that. And GG, you can now create a full-style Call of Duty type zombies map. If you reached this far into the video, then I want to say thank you so much. It's you guys sticking around till the very end of the video that actually make these videos do so well. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. And if you want to let me know you've reached this point in the video and you're actually still actively watching, then come join my Discord and say, Utah, you're a banana. And that way I know that you're a true fan. Link in the description to Discord right below. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace!